Hi, Eric. Thanks.
You've been working long hours, but do you think it'll be the Democrats who's going to blink on DACA?
Senate Democrats are going to have a chance tonight to vote on another funding resolution to open up the government, Eric. And this is something that they wanted. They wanted a shorter-term funding resolution. This will be a 3-week, not a 4-week. But it seems like, now we're sort of quibbling over days. But there are just two important points to remember here. One is House Republicans and the House of Representatives passed a resolution to keep the government funded. The president supports that. And a bipartisan majority of United States senators supported that on Friday night when we had that vote. 5 Democrats voted with Republicans to keep the government open. Second thing is, there isn't anything in this resolution that everybody's not for. The Democrats are for authorizing the Children's Health Insurance Program for 9 million kids in this country. And a number of the Obamacare taxes that everybody hates would be delayed. These are all things that there's a huge bipartisan majority in support of. So,
but they're digging in their heels they're digging in their heels, as you know. When it comes to the Dreamers, they're saying that will be part of the deal that the Republicans are rejecting.
Well, they're following their leader. Chuck Schumer has basically walked them into this box canyon where they don't have any way out. And they are holding hostage the issue of immigration, which doesn't have to be dealt with. The deadline for that, of course, as we know, is March, and shutting down the government in order to try and get that issue addressed, which, again, makes absolutely no sense. You've got a whole range of things that are addressed in this bill that everybody is for. There are bipartisan majorities supportive of what's included in this bill. And in order to negotiate the immigration issue, which we all agree needs to be dealt with, the government needs to be open. We've got to be up and functioning and for those negotiations to continue. And that's all simply that Republicans are saying, and we're all in favor of opening up the government. We were never in favor of shutting it down in the first place. That really was a ploy that was used by the Senate Democrat leader, and he's now got his members in a position where they're going to have to try and get out of it, and we're going to give them a chance again today to vote to do that.
What do you think? Well, how do they get out of it? What do you think will basically try and force him, if at all, to back down?
Well, I think there's been some face-saving attempts made here. There's been some willingness to negotiate the date on the continuing resolution. As I said, that's something that Republicans have already agreed to. In fact, House Republicans have indicated that if the Senate changed the date and sent it back over to the House would approve it. And there are negotiations that continue to go on the other issues. But the point is, those other issues, mainly, again, immigration, which is what the Democrats decided to shut the government down over, doesn't have a deadline until March. There were good faith negotiations being entered into by both sides, House, Senate, Republicans, Democrats, and we will get there on that. But using this ploy, this tactic, shutting down the government, which is, to me, is just all about politics, has nothing to do with the policy that the Democrats are trying to get done here, is really unfortunate, and it puts a lot of people, unfortunately, in a very difficult position when the government shuts down.
Yeah, it really does. We'll see what happens Monday morning. How many people are going to be furloughed? Meanwhile, you just mentioned continuing resolutions. Let me read you the tweet that the president tweeted out this morning about that. He said, "Great to see how hard Republicans are fighting for our military and safety at the border. The Dems just want illegal immigrants to pour into our nation unchecked. If stalemate continues, Republicans should go to 51% nuclear option and vote on real long-term budget. No CRs. As you know, Senator, the problem with CRs is they keep the budget basically at the same level as last year and don't increase the spending. What's your view of getting rid of that filibuster 60-vote threshold? Do you think it's possible? Is it something that Republicans would entertain? Would you be for it?
Continuing resolutions, as you pointed out, Eric, are bad. They're bad for the military, but the thing is worse for the military is shutting the government down, which is what the Democrats have chosen to do here. I don't think there's a need to go to 51. We shouldn't have to go to 51 to keep the government open. There ought to be bipartisan support for that, and there is. It's just that you got the Democrat leader, and of course in the Senate, as you know, because of the 60-vote threshold, we have to have 9 Democrats at least who are willing to vote with us, and we had 5 that voted with us the other day. But, I know the president is anxious. He's frustrated. We are as well. And, going to 51 on legislation is something that has been talked about before, but it would fundamentally change and transform the way the Senate functions. And I think that we ought to be able to solve this without taking that extreme measure. We ought to be able to get 60 votes, Republicans and Democrats, who agree to keep the government open and functioning so that we can negotiate these other important issues that the American people expect us to deal with.
Well, there's something that you agree with Dick Durbin. There's a Democratic and Republican agreement because he says it would end the Senate basically as we know it as the founding fathers perceived it. You know, Senator, finally, one of the most offensive parts of what's happening is the effect on the military, our brave men and women who are serving overseas and domestically. Their pay. They're even freezing and stopping the transfer of bodies at Dover Air Force Base. And the $100,000 benefit to family members whose service loved one is killed in action, that is frozen at the moment. And Claire McCaskill, a Democrat of Missouri, she tried to get that in unanimous consent, but it was shot down by McConnell. So can that be shoehorned in somehow? Can the Senate do anything to protect the military while this shutdown is ongoing?
First and foremost, we need to take care of the military. You're absolutely right, and that's why those who vote to shut the government down and put our military in that kind of a position, that is a shameful act, and they need to vote to open up the government when we have that opportunity later today, so that we can take care of our military and make sure that their important needs, the people who are defending this country every single day, of all people in this country that we depend upon, deserve to be treated more fairly than they're being treated under this government shutdown.
Absolutely. And the Senate back in session in about 45 minutes from now. We'll have that vote at 1 in the morning, Senator. So thank you. Get your coffee, get some extra double espressos, and some maybe some Sugar Rush to keep you up all night.
All right, thanks.
Hopefully you'll get something done. Thank you for joining us.
You bet. Thanks, Eric.